How are you today? I'm really excited to talk to you about this astrology aspect that's going on right now. I think it's important because, in my view, it's going to influence the new moon that starts on September 25th. Right now, the asteroid Prometheus is Quincunx, the planet Pluto. It was exact for 3 days this week, and it'll still be within a meaningful orb for several days. I'll show you that in a minute. Here's why it's important. First, Pluto is the lord of the underworld, an extremely powerful influence. There's a yod. Actually, it was amazing. Today, when I sat down to finally do the video, there was a yod with the moon. It was amazing timing. Well, anyway, the yod is the finger of God, so what God is pointing to on the chart. And the wings of the yod had Prometheus and the moon. So this is something that it's engaging our emotions. Potentially it's engaging us at the soul level. And it's dramatic. So Prometheus was a hero for humans. And several of the themes that he was involved in are literally planet-wide goings-on today. And that's why I think this is a fascinating aspect to look at. Prometheus is the reason why humans eat meat. He crafted some trickery because the head of the gods, Zeus, did not want humans to have the meat. The head of the gods, wanted the meat to himself. But Prometheus created a subtle trick by which he tricked Zeus, and thus, since then, humans have had access to meat. So that's very interesting. The other thing that happened was Zeus was so mad about this that he took fire away from the people. Now, fire is obviously something that we use to cook our food and to cook meat and other things. But fire, metaphorically, can also represent our passion. It can represent the fire of the soul, the connection with true divinity. And when I say divinity, I obviously mean, the Creator, God the Most High, the creator of the universe, your own soul. Okay, I'm not talking about the Greek gods when I'm talking about that. So what happened was Zeus was so mad that he gave Pandora's box. He had Pandora created, gave her a box, and convinced Prometheus's brother to receive the box and then receive Pandora and her box and then open Pandora's box. Prometheus is associated with insight and forward thinking. His brother was associated with foolishness and hindsight. Hindsight like, oops, should not have done that. So this theme is very active right now as well, because I think there are many people who, given the dramatic crises worldwide of the last 3 years, who might be having an idea of, oops, maybe I shouldn't have done that, whatever it is in their lives. Maybe it's the way they treated someone. Maybe it's something they've done. So, of course, the box is opened, and Pandora's box unleashes disease, pandemic. It releases sorrow and suffering upon humanity. Something else that is going on right now. It's pretty fascinating. So what happens is that Zeus takes Prometheus, because he's so angry with him, and he attaches Prometheus to a rock, and Prometheus is tortured. He has his liver plucked out by an eagle every day, and then the next day, it grows back, and he's tortured again. Okay. So the liver, as we know, represents anger, right? It's the seat of anger in the body. So we can only imagine that Prometheus was very angry about what happened to him. So just in the same way that many of us are very angry about what has happened to us, about global events that have occurred. Okay, so, or perhaps angry about how it has affected you personally. What's the meaning of Pluto Quincunx Prometheus? Well, I'll just get to the point. A quincunx is spiritually challenging. Here are my assessment of the outcomes. And what I'm going to tell you is that I feel that the outcomes are weighted towards the positive. Oh, I forgot a part of the Prometheus story. Essentially, what happens is he gets rescued and relieved of this terrible situation. And the way that happens is that Hercules convinces Zeus to allow him to trade Chiron for Prometheus. Hercules accidentally wounded Chiron, but because Chiron was immortal, he was suffering endlessly with the wound of the poison arrow, a poison shot into his body. Do you see how incredible that this story is with the themes? It's just amazing. Well, because Chiron was immortal, he couldn't die, and so Zeus accepted his death for Prometheus's life. And so Chiron agreed to be turned into a mortal. He died, and Prometheus was allowed to be rescued, and Hercules rescued him. So it's absolutely fascinating, isn't it? And Chiron is the wounded healer. He's the centaur who taught humans and was a mastery of himself. So what Chiron teaches us energetically and spiritually as an energy is to heal ourselves, to master ourselves, our lives, to face our shadow side and survive and heal. So it's interesting because there's a bit of a death cult access, a death cult part of this story, because Zeus is intent on someone, on receiving a death. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. One doesn't understand these things, but this is the Greek mythology, and the stories come from the human psyche and who knows where else. Okay, so here's my view of the outcomes, and here's the reason that I feel that the outcomes will be weighted towards the positive for humanity, because of the Sabian symbol that Prometheus conjuncted exactly, and not conjuncted, made the quincunx with Pluto exactly. I'll show you that in a second. It's my view that the outcomes here are a sudden reversal of fortunes. Of course, this could be negative or positive. It's going to depend on your own spiritual orientation. Have you been doing the work? Are you willing to face the darkness in your own life? And just take a look. Are you willing to make an inner commitment of some kind to make a small change, even the smallest, even if that's just asking for God's help in your life? And on, okay? So an unexpected benefit could result, or unexpected losses. Power over may temporarily triumph. Pandora's box represents the torment of humanity. And it can also represent successful negotiations, a win-win, because the negotiation that Hercules concluded was successful for everyone, for Zeus, for Prometheus, and for Chiron, and for Hercules himself, because I'm sure that he was distraught that he had harmed Chiron. So I want to let you know what the Sabian symbol is that occurred at this aspect. Prometheus was at the Sabian symbol Leo 27. Daybreak, the luminescence of dawn in the eastern sky. It's interesting because it implies action may come from the east in a positive way. This symbol implies the gradual feeling that darkness is dispersing. This is Linda Hill's interpretation. It talks about a new day on the horizon and a chance for new beginnings. So if we take the themes that we've been talking about related to this aspect, then we can see that there's a chance for a breakthrough here in a positive way. Now that's a little surprising, but it's important because the energies are so intense. It's important to keep going, keep following that inner compass, because remember that meme of the person who's digging a tunnel searching for diamonds, right? And they're with the pickaxe, and they're two men digging the tunnel. In one scene, the man stops, right? And he doesn't realize in the next scene the diamonds were only like another foot of dirt away. And so keep going, because this is a hint that we're at the part of the story where Prometheus, the benefactor of humanity, gets rescued. And in the rescue, right, one presumes he continues to be a benefactor. He has a heart-level commitment to promoting human beings. So the symbol also talks to the fact that there's been sacrifice along the way. There might be negative feelings, emptiness, but you will see the light of day and move forward again. It speaks of letting go of the darkness and moving into a new day, new plans, new solutions, new opportunities, new ideas, perspectives and realizations are emerging that are wonderful. They are new. They are going to move us forward. So it's very, very fascinating, isn't it? And the shadow of this Sabian symbol is remaining in fear, remaining in distrust, thinking that there's not hope, right? But remember, what was left in Pandora's box was hope, right? So it's interesting because the Sabian symbol that Pluto was at their exact quincunx, was a mountain pilgrimage, Capricorn 27. And this is also a very lofty, high energy symbol. It's about being able to rise up, climb high, perform well, have a mission, and embark on spiritual journeys. There's work to be done, but there's a process, a willing to commit, and then an expansion in consciousness. It's pretty exciting. So in the face of this meeting of energies, we may have a sudden reversal of fortunes that turns positive. We may have unexpected benefit. We may have the ability to move out of authoritarian, totalitarian systems. We may be able to lift ourselves up out of the torment of humanity and through successful negotiation achieve victory. But these things aren't easy. We're talking about a quincunx, and we're talking about Pluto. Pluto is the lord of the underworld. He's the master of life and death. He rules Hades, and he's the ruler of the 8th house in astrology, which is about death and rebirth. So if one chooses the lesser path spiritually, then that's when the negatives are more likely to be the outcome for someone who is affected by this aspect. So the aspect is in the high 20s in terms of degrees. So if you have that in your chart anywhere where you have an important planet or critical degree in the high 20s, then this is something that might impact your chart. You know, a lot of people have Sedna at these degrees. Sedna right now is at 29 degrees of Taurus, but many, many people were born with Sedna in the high 20 degrees in Aries. Sedna moves really slowly, so it was in those degrees for years. Sedna is the wounded child, and this is another reason why I feel that this aspect is so important in this week and last week, okay? And going into the new moon, it pulls the energy into the new moon. Sedna is the wounded child. And she was the one that was betrayed by her own father, tossed overboard, given to a man in marriage who even her father thought was outrageous how she was being treated, and rescued her, but then dumped her overboard. But the thing here is, and that reminds me of that saying, weak men make hard times, right? So essentially, Sedna represents the wounded child within. Right? Sedna represents the childhood trauma, and Pluto has been in relationship with Sedna for months in a trine, going back and forth and back and forth. And to me, what this has done is Pluto in this position has helped highlight the trauma of the children globally, the abuse of the children globally. It's just absolutely terrible. And Pluto shows us the worst. And because Pluto is able to get to the point, it's able to get to the soul aspect. And Pluto can also be used to heal the trauma in children. In its highest form, Pluto ends up being the mechanism of soul retrieval. Of course, there's other mechanisms that can be used as well, but I really like to use the Plutonian approach. Okay, so where were we here? So now you have Pluto, Sedna, and Prometheus in relationship. It's wide between Prometheus and Sedna, but Prometheus is now applying towards a square with Sedna, and it will be exact, I believe, at the new moon. I'm going to have to check that when I do a new moon video. I'll let you know for sure. I believe it will be exact with Sedna in square. So you can only imagine how Prometheus would feel about the abuse of children in large numbers on planet Earth. He would find a way to undo it, right? He would find a way to trick the negative gods and to assist humanity, or to trick the negative actions of the head god. At any rate, that was Zeus. So let's take a look more clearly, because what I want to show you is some things that may be affecting you personally. What are the emotions? And especially these emotions are around thoughts that we use to torture ourselves, essentially, because torture is an aspect of the energy here. So here are some of the things that could be represented by Pluto Quincunx Prometheus. And what Pluto does is it either helps us get to the seed of what this is about in ourselves, or it makes it very much worse. So when we have the courage to face this, we can strengthen ourselves and be willing to get to the seed of the cause, to whatever that means for you. Because it's like that story about climbing the mountain. There was a teacher talking to some students, and there was a picture of people on the mountain, right? And someone had gotten to the top, and someone had gotten part way. And the teacher said, who had the greatest victory? And the obvious answer was the people who hiked to the top of the mountain had the greatest victory. And the teacher said, actually, for some, getting partway up the mountain was the greatest victory of all. It took all they had to get that far. So be easy on yourself in terms of the self-judgments. You know what works for you. You know what action that you need to take, whether it's small, whether it's just getting out of bed in the morning, or it's, getting a group of people together and taking an action, or filing a lawsuit for some people, or whatever it happens to be that you do. I don't know. All right, so here we go. Ready? Here are the mechanisms at play. Self-sabotage, torturing the self, martyrdom, being made useless, desperation, under the effect of totalitarianism, dictators, anti-life, or dark religions, unfairness, retribution, grace, heroism, perseverance, doing the right thing, making sacrifices that result in global benefit, reward at the end of a difficult spiritual journey, attack by eagle or something represented by an eagle, or attack by air, treachery. So if you are experiencing any of these in a way that is very intense for you right now, then it's possible that this aspect has been affecting you. But like I said, I think it will get folded in to the new moon energies and affect us all. I wanted to talk for a minute about what is a quincunx, right? I used to listen to astrology videos and get very frustrated when people use astrology terms, because I just wanted to know what the meat of the information was, right? I didn't really care about the terms. So let me explain this. It's the shadow of the opposition. So the questions to ask here is, what's opposing you? Like, what's in the way of whatever is getting you down, right? What's on the other side of that? And then you take the next step, and that's what Pluto helps us do here. What is the shadow of that feature? Because this is the dynamic at play in these energies. And there's a global effect and there's an individual effect. So let me show you in pictures. So here's the chart that I made today, and I know that you're going to look at this and go, well, you just picked the time that there was a moon quincunx, but the amazing thing is that I simply sat down at 4:13 p.m. and started working on this. It's just amazing, isn't it, when you follow guidance about doing things, how things work out. So this red arrow here is the yod. And so here's Prometheus at 27 Leo. Okay, so this has a very individual effect. And here's Pluto at 26 retrograde in Capricorn. So this is also something that involves our legal systems, our government systems, people who are high up. It fits the Sabian symbols, and it also fits the involvement of Capricorn and the individual. So people high up affecting the individual. In fact, this is probably the best representation of this story in terms of the astrology chart, with Pluto at one end and Leo at the other. I guess the only other way it would be better, or would be if Aquarius was involved. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Aquarius would be if Aquarius was involved. And actually it is. Look at this, see? Because I made a cheat sheet here with these orange dots. Because Vesta is 2 degrees applying retrograde to Pluto. Vesta is the sacred hearth in the human home. Vesta is also the priestess in the temple who guards the sacred flame. So the sacredness in our homes, right, in our human homes, has been violated in all sorts of ways now. At least in our Western society, it's pretty obvious that we're in trouble in terms of the human home. And when Vesta and Saturn a few months ago had conjuncted in Aquarius, what I said was that we need a new approach, a new structure in the human home that is deeply rooted in tradition to move us forward into the Aquarian age. And the amazing thing that I've seen since that, I said it and I was like, how does this even make sense? How can you take something rooted deeply in tradition, in human cultural tradition, and then make it into something new? And then it was incredible how I've seen that happen. That's the story for another day right now. I may have mentioned it in another video. Okay, so what's happening here is that Vesta's also applying towards Saturn again. So it's activating that same energy. So this is the solution. See, this is in the shadow here. It's actually in the shadow of this Quincunx. Yeah. So interesting. Okay, and then here's Neptune retrograde at 24. Okay, so we've got, all right, here's Eris retrograde at 24. So all of these are applying towards Pluto in aspect. And then here's Ceres at 25. And it's applying towards Prometheus. So what's happening here? You've got Neptune reviewing illusion and potentially having great insights doing that. You've got Eris, who loves to create huge disturbances which help us get back in connection with divinity, but cause dramatic situations. We've got the moon in Gemini, so we're torturing ourselves with our mental thoughts. And then here's Ceres, the mother, okay? The mother who went to Hades and negotiated with Pluto to get back her child. Oh, goodness. And where is she? She's in relationship with Prometheus, who is in direct aspect, close aspect with Pluto. So this is an incredible set of energies. I would just add here that Hygeia is at 22. Okay, Hygeia is health and wellness. And so what's happening here is Hygeia is applying towards 25, and it's applying towards these points at 24. And it makes me wonder if there's a breaking point coming up here of some sort related to health and wellness. And the reason is all these other points are in retrograde that it's applying towards, with the exception of these three down here. But these powerful points here on the left side of the chart are all in retrograde. And Hygeia is going to be making exact aspects to each one of these, most likely. The other interesting thing here is that the sun is at 25 degrees direct. So the sun is bringing a positive light, the light of transparency, to all of these aspects. And it's in the shadow of the Promethean aspect as well. So from behind the scenes, the sun is assisting. So I said that the Quincunx is the shadow of the opposition. So let me explain that. Here's Capricorn with Pluto at 26. So the opposition here would be Cancer at 26. Okay, so the opposition to Pluto and Capricorn is in the sign of Cancer, which relates to the human home, which we just talked about here with Vesta. So the antidote, right, to solve these issues here goes back to the human home. And think about it. the core issue we're focused on is the state of humanity in certain key areas that I've mentioned related to the Prometheus story and to how Plutonian energy works. So what's happening is that we're being shown that the opposition is related to the home. Something's not right in the human home, and that's what needs to be addressed, and that's why these things have come to a head. And what's in the shadow of the human home at 26 or 27 degrees? Well, it's Prometheus, and it's the mother. Okay, so we need the mother in the home, and we need a benefactor of humanity at high levels of our society, because for too long the negative influence has reigned, which has caused the current situation and caused havoc. Isn't that amazing? So do you see what that is, how that quincunx works? And the thing is that this is in the shadow here. Prometheus is in the shadow. And because it's in Leo, we can also say that while globally there may be forces at work having humanity's back, which I believe there are, but what this says in Leo, the sign of the individual, is it's up to each of us to do something, to be the benefactor for ourselves in ways that will benefit humanity over the long haul. And what does that mean? When you take care of yourself, when you treat yourself with respect and dignity, you teach your children to do that. When you stand up for yourself and you set healthy boundaries around behavior, you teach your children to do that. Okay, so this is in the shadow of Cancer. Okay, so that's what I'm addressing here. When you act heroically, you protect the home. You protect human access to health. You protect human access to care. You protect human access to proper food. You protect human access to fire. You protect human access to the soul. I mean, these are big issues. But do you see how the quincunx works? You see the opposition, and then you've got to go one more step removed. It's like a derivative in calculus. I long ago forgot how to do calculus, so I won't be able to comment any more than that, but I wish I could. All right. So, there's one other thing I wanted to show you. This is pretty fascinating. I wanted to show you where Zeus is. Okay. Zeus, who was bigly involved in this story, who put Prometheus chained to the rock face. Zeus is retrograde, and he's a little over 3 degrees from Chiron. Chiron, who traded his life so that Prometheus, the benefactor of humanity, could live. Okay, Chiron, who achieved self-mastery and who is the wounded healer. Well, Zeus is moving towards Chiron in a way, retrograde. Okay, so, but they're in relationship. And I thought that was fascinating that happens to be the case now. But look at this. Zeus at 18 is exact with Uranus. And what does this say? This is why I said a sudden reversal of fortunes. And I made that, hold on, where did I put it? In here. Here it is, a reversal of fortunes. And I think it'll be a reversal of fortunes to the positive. Why? Because of the Sabian symbols that Prometheus and Pluto are at, number one, at their exact aspect, and number two, because Zeus is reviewing his actions. And in reviewing his actions, that's when He agrees with Hercules that Prometheus may be rescued and Chiron may be allowed to become mortal and pass on, so that Chiron would end his suffering. And so I think that with Uranus at 18 in Taurus, the Earth, that there could be a dramatic reversal of fortunes that would benefit the Earth. But we each have to do our part. Prometheus in Leo. And it's not easy. Okay, I want to emphasize that it's not easy. Right? We're facing big challenges and we're in the shadow of the opposition. But it's possible. And what you see here is that the rewards are great. It's worth the effort. It's worth gathering your courage and facing whatever it is that you need to do. And I want to show you something else here. Look at here. Chiron is exact quincunx with Venus. Venus, our core and true value. And she is in Virgo, the sign of a ridiculous amount of detail. So we're able to review that here if we put our will, if we apply our will, if this is what you're guided to do and it resonates with you, okay, then we can apply our will to recover our value as humans, to stand up and say, I am value, I'm valuable, I'm deserving. And in doing so, we heal ourselves. And with Chiron and Aries, we have the power to do that and the fortitude. And not only that, but Chiron is sextile, which is positive and beneficial relationship. It's sextile Mars within a degree. And Mars, though, is opposing Venus. So we've got big energy for this on the wounding side. And moving past our woundings, right? Torturing ourselves with our thoughts, moving past that requires us to accept our value and love ourselves enough to let go of the past, let go of our mistakes, let go of what we did wrong, release the guilt, let go of the grief, the betrayal, and move on. The rewards are big, and this is a huge opportunity.